Thank you for tuning in to this edition of Here's to Your Health. I'm your host, Joshua Lane. My guest is Peter Wright, a hypnotherapist who works with past life regression. Peter's been a guest on my show before, and it's a very interesting conversation. Peter, welcome to Here's to Your Health.
Thank you very much.
Now, for the listening audience, please tell me, what is past life regression?
With past life regression, we take the client who has a particular issue that they're seeking to resolve. I take them into hypnosis, into a trance state, and we invite their higher self to come forth, and in connecting with their own inner wisdom, we ask the higher self if the issue has as its cause or source something that happened to the client in this life or a past life. And then once that answer is, I get yes or no for each of those. If it's a past life, I take the client back into a past life story where they experience it firsthand. And so then we look for the defeats in that story. Where did things go wrong? Or if you're the perpetrator, what did you do to other people? We go through the death. How did you die? What was your dying thought? And then we take you into what the Tibetans call the bardo, the in-between place between lifetimes, where you can come to closure with those from that story with whom you're still unfinished. So, in other words, we're going into the story and we're seeking to help release you from what happened in that story so you can come to closure with it.
Now, that is a very interesting subject, which is why I invited you to be on the show. Where were you when you, I'll use the word, bumped into these ideas? Where were you when you found out about past life regression and the value? On a personal level for you.
On a personal level, well, I'll give you a brief story just before then, because my older brother, when I was a child, had a comic book collection. And one of the comic books he had was a Superman comic book. And way back when, there were advertisements in the back. And in this particular issue, there was a coupon for a book that was How to Hypnotize Your Friends.
Aha.
I'm maybe 9 years old, 10 years old, so I go up to my father, and I say to my father, Dad, I'm really interested in buying this book. And I showed him the ad, but I don't have any money. Could you help me? And my father looked at the ad and looked at his loving son and said, that's the stupidest idea I've ever heard.
Oh dear, okay.
So that killed that idea.
For a while,
but
right.
It festered. It was there and grew over the years until finally I, after graduate school, came back to Washington, D.C. and began taking classes in my spare time. So came back to D.C. and began taking classes, and that led me to, once I got certified in hypnosis, the Professional Society for Past Life Regression came to Washington, D.C. for their annual convention, 2 blocks from where I lived. It's a sign, Peter, go.
Okay, good for you.
So I went, and that's what really introduced me to the topic.
And you just thought, oh my goodness, this has merit.
Yes, and it was 25 years ago.
And may I ask, what profession had you been in up to that point?
Been in working with nonprofits as a fundraiser for a variety of nonprofits.
I see. And what's your master's degree in economics?
It's in international relations.
I see.
So it's a little bit different from what I ended up doing, but it was good training for what was to come.
And did you work with someone? Was there a mentor in this profession who you work with, and they said, "Listen, Peter, this is the technique that works"?
Absolutely. I studied with Roger Wolger, whose book Other Lives, Other Selves is considered to be one of the classics in past life regression literature.
Now, this obviously is going to be a controversial subject. A lot of people will really be mad at you, frankly. The whole idea of a past life seems to be something that the Judeo-Christian way of thought has no use for, right?
Well, it turns out that the belief in past lives was part of all major religions.
What was?
In fact, you can trace it back to the Hindu religion, the world's oldest religion, and you even see it as well, even earlier, with the Egyptians and their beliefs in terms of being buried with your implements, so that in the next life you can pick them up and restart over again. So I find that it was in the second Council of Constantinople, about 556 A.D. It was at that point that the belief in reincarnation was dropped from the Christian church.
Oh, I see.
Because it was believed that that would take, at the time, power away from the emperor and from the church. They wanted to decide who would go to heaven, and therefore the emperor and the church realized that they could be the doorkeepers, if you will, for your soul to be, quote, to your journey of souls to continue.
Now, when people come, you have an office in Santa Barbara?
Yes, I do.
And so people come to you for a session. Is it less like an hour or something, a session?
Sessions are 2 hours long.
2 hours.
We accomplish a great deal in that 2-hour period of time. And my goal is I see this as short-term therapy. So the prospect of getting together once every 2 weeks with someone for the rest of our lives absolutely bores me. I'd rather instead work with a client for 2 hours and then have 1 or 2 more sessions to help them release and let go of the issue. Because past life therapy is remarkably quick. It is exceedingly quick, so we can cover a lot in just a 1-2 hour session.
And do you tape record the sessions?
Yes, I do.
Because after all, if you're under hypnosis, you don't really remember too much, right?
You remember most everything under hypnosis.
Really? You do?
This
Okay.
is a myth about that, but it's often as part of the session we have worked with your higher self, and towards the end of the session, I invite your higher self to come forth and share with us what has happened, what are the results that we've achieved. And it's nice to have that on record, if you will, on the recording, your own voice, channeling your higher self, telling you how wonderful you are.
Ah.
So.
And people come to a session and then they write to you or they call you and say, Peter, I'm just feeling better. In other words, do people just find, is it practical? In other words, people think, I had this issue or 7 issues, and then I go see Peter, I have a session, I play it back at my leisure at the house, and I listen to it and I think, I benefited from this. Is that what people tell you?
That's exactly right. In fact, I make sure, in terms of a follow-up phone call, about a week after the session, I tell the client in advance, I'd like to speak with you to talk about how the session went, talk about the results you've achieved, answer any questions you might have. And so in that phone call, I'm told continuously how valuable it was, because for me, results are everything. And that's why I so appreciate the approach that past life therapy can give to clients, even if they don't believe in these stories. Because I think that's one other important point here. Clients will say after a session, Peter, was I really a farmer who was taken off to war in medieval Europe? Well, maybe. Dr. Brian Weiss, who wrote Many Lives, Many Masters, which is a classic in the field, believes that up to 80% of what comes through in these stories might have happened to you. Maybe. Or maybe you attracted to you someone else's story from the collective unconscious. All those stories are out there, and you glommed on and told that person's story because it mirrors where you're stuck. And telling that person's story helped you to become unstuck. Or maybe you made up the whole thing. But is the pain in the shoulder gone? Oh, it is? Then let's not worry about it.
Okay.
So
Okay, that seems fair. If I could mention this, since you mentioned Brian Weiss, Many Lives, Many Masters, I would like to mention that Iris Salzman, the clairvoyant from North Miami, Florida, was the teacher of Brian Weiss. And I was in class with Brian Weiss in the early 1980s when Weiss was taking class with Iris Salzman. And Iris Salzman is such a remarkable clairvoyant that the police department hires her occasionally when they don't know what to do for a case.
Exactly.
And she taught Brian Weiss these ideas, which Brian Weiss felt, he's a MD psychiatrist, had merit. So I'm happy to mention Iris Salzman's name because I was a client of Iris, and she was so remarkably accurate for me and so helpful for me that it really made me realize it was a much bigger universe than I previously suspected, and that was real good for me, so I'm thrilled you mentioned Brian Weiss.
Well, and also I truly believe, and this I find has been true in my practice over the last 23 years, that all the answers are within us, and it's just tuning in to our inner wisdom and asking questions and working with the stories that are within us that can bring about the shift, the change, the results that we seek. Another accompanying thought with that is that perhaps from a metaphysical perspective, we've created these issues. If so, we can uncreate them. We can heal, we can resolve what's going on within us that no longer serves us.
So give me a concrete example. Let's say, for example, I don't want to sound too pedestrian. Let's say someone is smoking cigarettes and they want to quit. Can you help them with that?
Typically, I don't work with smoking or weight loss just because it doesn't interest me.
Right.
Instead, let's say that the presenting issue for you is that you have a bursitis in the shoulder. It just
For no apparent reason.
Yeah, it just hurts. The doctor said it's just bursitis. There's nothing to do about it, but it hurts. So I take you into hypnosis, a very relaxed, light trance, and invite your higher self to come forth. Does this have its cause or source something that happened to you in this life? No. A past life? Yes. Will you take us there now? Yes. I'll count from 1 to 5 and invite you to come along. At 1, going backwards in time, 2, 3, 4, 5. Plant yourself firmly down in the memory of your body as it was then, and plant your feet firmly into that body. Now, about 60% of my clients are visual, so they see it. About 40% of my clients are more kinesthetic or audio. They hear it, they sense it, they feel it, they think they're making it up. But it's coming from somewhere within them. The soul speaks through the imagination. So just believe in it. Let's go with it as if it's real. So thus, afterwards, a client will say, did this really happen to me? And I give them the answers. And often then the pain goes away. So is it a story? It's for sure a story. Don't know if it's real or not, but it works for that client. It's coming from them, from their higher self. Get out of the way, trust it, and experience the results.
And you've had success, that you've had people who have had aches and pains, and you said, well, that might have been a wound of some type from war, and you've gone through a sequence, and the clients think, well, I don't have that pain in my shoulder anymore, so Peter, whatever, it worked for me.
Exactly. Okay. Time and time and time again. Because I've worked with about 1,400 clients over the last many years, and I'd say we've been very successful in helping them release, let go of, set free from those old beliefs, the pains, the aches, the anxiety, the stress, the relationship issues. Whatever the issue may be, there could be a past life story involved.
And again, you do tape record the session, and the clients say, Peter, we listen to that every couple of weeks when I'm in a low mood, and it gives me strength. Does anyone tell you that? Do people use that also therapeutically?
Yes, they can, depending upon the session and what we're working with.
Well, Peter, this is very interesting, and I appreciate you being on. How can we contact you in Santa Barbara?
You can go to my website, www.insightsfromwithin.com, insight with a plural, with an S, or give me a call at 805-682-6901.
Peter, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. You're watching us today. This is Here's to Your Health. I'm your host, Josh Lane. Thanks for tuning in.